Hello. Today I'm speaking to Mike Hobday of IBM. And we're going to be talking about something that banks have been discussing for a number of years, this idea about moving to more creative, customer-centric environments. But that's almost easier said than done. I mean, there are obviously a lot of challenges and barriers for banks moving from product-centered to this holy grail of customer-centric. What are some of the challenges and barriers that the banks face right now?
Well, Liz, thank you very much. You're right. We've been talking about it for a very long time, and banks have been talking about it for a very long time. But now they're taking it very seriously. But unfortunately, they're facing the perfect storm, moving to customer centricity at a time when they're facing sweeping regulatory change, real challenges around customer trust and the values and cultures in banking. And a time when you and I, Liz, are engaging with service providers in very different ways through mobile channels. We expect things to be accessible, transparent, really fast, and a lot of it self-service. And that's compounded by an environment where there isn't a lot of money around. There's virtually no growth. So these are some of the external challenges they need to take into account when they think about customer centricity. But the starting point really is very challenging because they've been through in an environment where there has been growth and where customers have been ready to take products almost on a product push basis. And so what's been happening over the last 30 years is serial underinvestment in the technology and investment around operations and systems. And that leaves them with an environment which is some call legacy, some called heritage, but it's a problem that banks are organised around product silos where a mortgage business and a loans business and a savings business will exist within a bank and they will compete for a customer's business. And that's the old model. And moving away from that is going to be really, really challenging.
So you talked a little bit now about the challenges to moving towards a customer-centric environment, but what are some of the benefits for banks? I mean, surely it's more than just improving customer service, isn't it?
It certainly is, Liz. And why is it that we're seeing today the government and encouraging new entrants and people genuinely interested in that, and organisations like Google and PayPal moving in to take what is traditionally a banking space, because people recognise that financial services is at the core of people's lives. And being engaged in the financial transactions of an individual, whether it's saving or making payments or buying things or buying a house, gives a real opening to providing a broader range of services than simple banking. And banks recognise that, and that's why they're starting to invest and why customer centricity is at the centre of their current thinking. But getting it right actually delivers both kind of customer revenue benefits but also cost benefits. What the customer wants is products delivered at the right time, and that requires a high level of efficiency and an awful lot of self-service actually. And what that will mean is getting it right and delivering services on an integrated channel, across integrated channels, mobile, branch, call centres, and web-based, will undoubtedly drive significant cost benefits for the bank.
I mean, I had a bit of a follow-up question just because you mentioned Google and PayPal, these sort of non-bank competitors. Yeah. And yesterday in the UK, George Osborne, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, made a speech claiming that this industry needs to be opened up to include more of these non-bank competitors. So that seems to be even more of a driver for banks to make this change.
Key parts of what has been the banking model where they've made money in the past will disappear for them. And the danger is they're left as simple product providers with very little customer contact. And we've seen that in the insurance industry, and banks are very fearful about it.
I mean, a lot of these conversations about customer-centric models move towards sort of the front end, dealing with customers. But I think sometimes that gets ignored, the sort of back end. And I guess this idea of a data mess, you mentioned legacy systems, is inherent in a lot of banks. Do you think the financial services world are sort of underestimating the amount, the challenge of the data mess in moving towards this model?
The challenge is huge because, I mean, customers expect their bank to know them. And perhaps once upon a time they did, when they had a bank manager and it was just a branch as a channel. And banks are trying to go back to that. Is how can they evidence that they really understand and know their customers? But as I was saying before, there's a problem in that they've been organised themselves around these product silo businesses, and their data reflects that. So it's it's data around mortgages and loans, but not around the customer. And I know of banks with very significant data warehouses that are a significant mess. So what are they going to do about it? Well, they've got to start spending significantly in either cleaning up that data or actually starting again in some cases.
So it's almost like the technology is stopping banks from giving that bank branch type service, but in the 21st century.
Oh, I think it is. In a way, it's both. I mean, it's the heritage, if you like, that's blocking them, the complexity. Because, taking data that's in a mess and trying to migrate it and get it into a clean state is really hard. Whereas some of the new entrants start with a blank page. And that's very, very difficult. And you compound that with the, greater level of regulatory, pressures on banks. Around privacy and around managing all of that data. I mean, if you're coming in as a new entrant, you have a significant potential advantage, and that's something banks are very fearful about.
That's interesting. Well, we could talk about this for a very long time, but I want to thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Liz.